that with anyone who would like it after our session. My name is Mary Roberts, and I work in the Center for Career and Leadership Development, and we are going to be talking about landing your dream internship today. So before we get really deep into the workshop, if both of you in the chat could introduce yourself, say your major or area of study in your year in school, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, etc., and one or two things you hope to get out of today's workshop. So you can go ahead and share that in the chat. Okay. I don't know if the chat maybe isn't working. Well, we'll go ahead to our next slide. So here are a few things that you can expect from today's workshop. We will learn where and how to find the best internships. I know that is probably first and foremost on your mind. Also, how to be competitive for the best internship. So once you find them, you want to make sure that when you apply, you're one of the people that they contact, and that when you interview, you get offered that internship. And then we also want to work on just increasing your confidence about the ability to land a great internship. We often see that people are hesitant to apply for internships. They feel like they don't have enough experience, and so then they may not follow through on the process. So we want you to feel very knowledgeable and confident about your ability to go through that process. So why are internships so important? So there are a lot of groups that will do surveys of employers and why they hire interns and what they think about internships. There's an association called the American Association of Colleges and Universities. They do a lot of research with what employers are needing out of today's workforce coming out of colleges. And those surveys that they conduct regularly find that over 90% of employers prefer to hire somebody who has had internship experience, not necessarily with their company, although a lot of companies have an internship program to create a pipeline for future full-time employees. But for most employers, when they see that internship experience on your resume, that's a flag to them that, hey, this is someone who's had experience in a professional environment. They know a little bit more about the field already. They may have also already figured out that, yeah, I do like this type of work and I'm committed to it. Sometimes if your first job out of college in your field is that full-time position, you haven't had a chance to try it out yet. And sometimes that's when people find out they're in the wrong field. So much better when you can figure that out in a 3-month internship. They also know that you're just coming in more with that knowledge about the industry and skills that they may not have to teach you about that field and that industry because you've already started it out with another organization. So how is an internship different from a part-time job? This is a question we commonly get because to many it seems like, well, I'm getting those things at my part-time job. And maybe you are. Maybe your part-time job is in your professional field. And if so, that's great. But if it's not in your field, that's where things can definitely be missing. You're not getting exposed to the type of work you want to do in your career. And so you may feel when you're graduating and looking for a job that you're starting to find, well, I don't have enough experience to get into the field, and you start to feel that frustration. So having that professional experience in your field helps you get a little bit closer to that career goal that you may have. The majority of your work tasks should be tied to learning outcomes and goals. At a part-time job, you're pretty much doing whatever the employer wants you to do, whatever they want and need, and they may not be concerned about does this match your major, and they really shouldn't have to worry about that. Also supervision by a professional in your field. And that again, like maybe your part-time job is in your field, but maybe you're not doing professional work in that field yet. And so that may be too where an internship in the field you're in would be a step above what you're doing now. And then for internships, there's often an opportunity to get academic credit. Whereas a part-time job, we don't do academic credit for those because they're not attached to what you're hoping to do in your career and what you're learning in your program. It can also take up to 6 to 9 months to find an internship or job that you really want, which is much different than how many people find part-time jobs. Often part-time jobs kind of just happen. We go and talk with someone, they like us, we get the job. The professional search is not like that. And that's a big challenge for a lot of people, a big hoop for people to go through because they're so used to that part-time job just falling into place, and they've never really had to interview professionally and search for a position. So internships, once you conquer that job search, you're going to be able to do a professional full-time job search as well. They're very similar. So there are additional rewards with an internship. One might be academic credit, and keep in mind this is optional. There are some majors that require an internship, but many of our majors do not require that. But that's not the only reason to do it. Just because, you know, if it's not required, you should still do it. If you don't need the credit, you should still do it. Because as we said, 90% or more of employers think this experience is extremely important and they're more likely to hire you if you have it. If you want academic credit for an internship, then, you know, as you're working with that employer, interviewing, accepting that position, then you want to touch base with your academic department to find out what they need so that you can get credit. Typically, you're going to need a really good job description that shows learning outcomes from that internship and what you'll be getting out of it. They need to know who your supervisor is going to be. Your site also has to be willing to fill out any paperwork that your academic department might request. Every department's different, so there's not a Middle Georgia State, you just do this, but many of the programs have typical paperwork and guidelines that are going to be similar across the university. And often with the internships for credit, it's the same type of thing. You still have to find your own internship. It's not that you go to an advisor and they say, hey, here's an internship. And we will talk about networking in a little bit. And there are times where your academic department does know about some internships, but even then, typically there's an application process. The other thing to think about is that many internships are paid. Many more are paid than they used to be. It used to be more that they were unpaid. You'll still see some unpaid internships, particularly in nonprofits, media, arts, education, and small businesses that don't have as many employees. And typically too, you know, if you're a freshman or sophomore trying to get your first experience and you know that going in, they're going to have to teach you quite a bit because you haven't gotten very far in your program, then an unpaid internship in that instant could be very common as well. There are also experiences such as nursing clinicals, student teaching internships. Those are embedded in a curriculum and they're unable to be paid. So if it's part of your curriculum, your faculty's super involved, you're not getting paid for those things. However, there are still opportunities sometimes within those fields to work for maybe a hospital as an extern, which is a part-time position at a hospital that isn't connected to your curriculum, but you can get paid. But most of the time, you can get paid and get credit at the same time. So that's important. Sometimes people think they can't get paid if they're getting credit, but many times you can. There's no rules against that. So how do you go about finding an internship? You know, I said it takes 6 to 9 months, and there are many resources available to you. So some of the main ones that you've probably heard about, obviously Handshake, which is what our university uses. If we get internship information, we post that on Handshake. We're also part of a national network where all kinds of employers, everyone from Fortune 500 to small regional employers that are posting internship and job opportunities on Handshake. So that's an important piece of your search, plus the employer database that's available to you on Handshake. LinkedIn, which has a similar feel to it, but is much broader in scope. And many companies are posting their internships on LinkedIn. And if you've gone to LinkedIn and used their job board, you also want to create a profile so that you can network with alumni. And when employers are looking on LinkedIn and they see that you've applied for something, they see your profile's complete. Those are two important pieces to have there. Professional associations is another resource that a lot of people overlook. So let's say you're interested in marketing or public relations. There are national associations attached to those fields, and both of those have internship information and job boards. So also in the full-time search, same type of resources that you'd want to go back and use. There's also some industries that have really good, robust job boards where if you've got a job in that industry, you go and you post it there. Higher ed, the field that I'm in, is one of those higher ed jobs. If you're interested in higher ed, you'll see colleges post internships in the summer for undergraduates. So that's even, an area somebody might want to intern in. There's different, just all types of different job boards for different industries. The Society of Human Resource Management, their job board for human resources is pretty well used, and also their regional chapters. Atlanta, SHRM has a job board just for HR jobs, and you don't have to be a member of the association. And then company website. So go straight to the source. If you know that you're limited in geographic location, or there's just certain companies you really want to work for, your best resource is going to be going right to their website, because they may have chosen not to post it anywhere else, or it may not be showing up, or they may also just have general information about their internship programs, and then they post those positions at various times throughout the year. Many of your Fortune 500 companies are going to recruit for interns in the fall with the intention of them starting in the summer. So it's also about timing of your search. Sometimes what we see is that, I want to do a summer internship, so it's April, I'm going to start looking. It doesn't mean you won't find something, but the longer you wait, you may have missed out on some opportunities where companies were trying to fill positions very early. There are also some other resources online. Google has a search feature. Pretty much if you use the Google browser and you go in and you search for any kind of job, their platform's going to pop up first, and it pulls a lot of jobs from different websites that match up. And what I would say with that, or Indeed, or any of those job boards you're using, always cross-reference it back to the company website. Is that job really listed? Because sometimes you'll see some kind of weird industry websites popping up that are not as well known or used. So always cross-reference back to the company website. But again, those boards can really help you identify some things you hadn't thought about yet. Career fairs, and we're still having career fairs in the pandemic, but many of them are virtual, and I would encourage you, take advantage of those. We don't see as many people taking advantage of them as they should. So the students who are often are getting interviews and follow-up calls afterwards. And basically a virtual interview, a virtual career fair is just an interview. So you're signing up ahead of time, you're picking the employers you want to talk to. I'd encourage you to talk to more than even the ones that you think you're interested in. Just do some research and pick some additional ones. We're also seeing people not picking enough people to talk to. And so use the most of your time. It's 10 minutes with an employer one-on-one, so you really get that time. Whereas the big career fairs that we had in public, you may have not always felt like you got the time that you wanted with an employer. So now with the virtual, you can get 10 minutes one-on-one with them and really make a connection. Some will also offer info sessions during those events, and those are 30 minutes. And you may be one of 10 students, or you might be one of 5. And so there's still a really good opportunity to make a connection, even in one of those info sessions. And then your network. So that is everyone you know, your friends, your family, people that your friends and family know, your career center, your academic department. Everybody in your circle comes into contact with other people. So even when you think, oh, well, that person's not in my field, you might be surprised as to who they know and who they can connect you with. So as I said, these types of people are in your network, everyone from your career advisor, academic advisor, faculty, friends, family, everyone you know may have a connection to that place you'd like to intern or the field that you want to be in. So we talked a little bit about Handshake. A few other things I want to mention. Yes, there's a job board, and sometimes you go to the job board and you're like, hey, the thing I really wanted isn't there. One thing I want to encourage you to use is also the directory in Handshake. There's over 500,000 employers in the directory. It's a great way for you to do searches by industry or location. We've even created some labels in there, and we're always updating and adding to those. We have one for Middle Georgia, we have one for Georgia, one for Atlanta, so that if you're trying to hone in on those geographic areas, which a lot of our students are, that helps you identify some companies that they're already in the database. At some point they've posted something, come to a job fair. They just might not be great about keeping their postings up. So you can go to their website. Handshake provides a link to their site. Sometimes there's even a contact name. So a lot of great information to help you get started. And then it's focused on college grads and students. So whereas LinkedIn is going to be everybody, everyone from the CEO level to the entry level uses LinkedIn and might be using it to get to their next position, whereas Handshake is truly for individuals who are in college or have recently graduated. And then all of our information is in there too. So that's where you're going to find our career fairs, our workshops like the one we're offering today, appointments with us, things like that. So it's definitely a one-stop. What I'm showing you next is just an example of an internship posting that the type of internship posting you might see in Handshake and the different features that the system has when you're searching for jobs. So there are filters where you can filter internship, and then it'll give you, a list of internships based on your search parameters. In this particular search, we just looked for Georgia, and it was a YMCA social media marketing intern. It's probably one of those kinds of positions that they offer frequently, and if you went to the YMCA Metro of Atlanta's website, they probably have similar ones posted throughout the year. You can also save your searches by doing my favorite jobs, and that way when you go back into Handshake, that position pops up for you. There are also some really cool features where past interns at different positions will give reviews. And so this one here on the right is a student who interned with the Federal Home Bank of Atlanta who gave a review of that internship. Yes, you get a review, but you might also, if you were going to interview for that internship or apply, you might reach out to that student and make a connection with them. So that's similar to LinkedIn, where we talk about LinkedIn as a tool to connect with alumni, to ask people in our field questions about the work we want to do. You can also do that on Handshake, but with other students. And then that's an important thing to remember, that even the people in our classes are part of our internship, that the students who are out doing what we want to do are part of our network as well. And this is an example of the employer database. And so in this screenshot, we looked for employers 50 miles of Atlanta. We didn't go very much further into the filter. So that popped up about 9,000 employers in the Atlanta region. And so that's maybe a little overwhelming, but also really exciting when sometimes we feel like, oh gosh, I don't even know where to look, what companies exist, because yeah, we know there's the Coca-Cola, but there's so many smaller companies that might be easier for us to get our foot in the door in the very beginning, because that Coca-Cola might not be our first job. Maybe that's down the road once we have some more experience. You can also follow your top companies on Handshake, which again, like when they post something becomes available in the system related to them, that'll pop up on your profile when you log in too, and you'll get email notifications as well. So LinkedIn, I mentioned earlier that you want to make sure you have a really good profile on LinkedIn. We can certainly help you with that in several ways. We can sit down with you and make sure that your profile in LinkedIn is matching up well with your resume. We often start with the resume first and make sure you have a great resume, and then you can use that content in your LinkedIn profile. We also take professional headshots, and we are starting our professional headshot days. We have one tomorrow in Cochrane, and we'll be doing another on March 11th in Macon, and then we'll have some other events in Dublin and Warner Robins in April. And we scheduled those on Handshake in our appointment section because you're not able to just drop in for those anymore. We do require an appointment. But definitely using LinkedIn as a supplement to what you're not seeing on Handshake. LinkedIn is definitely, it's the tool most organizations are using anymore. And so it's important that you're in there using it. And then the alumni tool that's in LinkedIn allows you to go and search for Middle Georgia State University and then look for people in your career field that you can talk with. And we can certainly help you navigate that resource and how to send crafted messages to those people so that you can set up, maybe it's an alum that maybe you want to be a lawyer and you see an alum who works at a law firm and you want to know about their career path. Many times those internship opportunities start out as just a question about somebody's career field, and then they may recommend that you apply to an internship at their firm or maybe at another one that they're familiar with. This is an example of the alumni tool. So this example is typing in the keywords program and project management, and where it showed up in people's profiles, those people are at the bottom. It even breaks it down into geography, and you can drill it down further. Maybe I only want to see the ones in Savannah, so I click on Savannah, or I only want to see the ones at Delta Airlines. A lot of times people use LinkedIn just to see, well, where are alumni working? And then I want to drill that down further so I can see who those people are. As I mentioned, those other resources like the Google for Jobs, the professional associations. Here's just some examples of how you may search in those resources. So the Google for Jobs, if you did search like maybe marketing internships or aviation internships, and then doing a search for whatever field you're in and professional association. And we've got a list, an example of some different associations, but pretty much every field has one. So go and Google that and see what you can find about yours. And then here are some of those industry specific. USA Jobs is another one specific to the federal government. If you want to work for Robins Air Force Base, Dobbins Air Force Base, the IRS, any of those federal agencies, they have to post all their positions now in USA Jobs. And since the pandemic, they've gotten even better about posting things, even on Handshake. And that's another thing, I think, because so many organizations have had to really rely on virtual and not just when they can come to a campus or set up a job fair at their site. There is a lot more information online than used to be. I think people had a false sense of what was online, but because companies can't necessarily open their doors to the public or come on campus as frequently, they are posting more often on their sites. This is the Google for Jobs that I was referring to. So if I just go to Google and I type in data science internships Atlanta, this is an example of what might pop up. But you'll see that some of them, let's see, I skipped over that. Let me go back. Some of them will come from another job board like Glassdoor or LinkedIn. So you always want to just double check on that company's website. And then the specific company programs. So we've listed a few organizations that have specific internship programs that you may want to go and check out. There are also things out there like, best internship lists. Vault does them. I think Forbes may do them. Different groups do them. So that's another thing you may go and look for. And then there are those sites like Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Yeah, go and check them out. But if that's the only thing you're using, just know that those a company may not pay to participate in those resources. Things like Handshake is free. LinkedIn will, in some way, LinkedIn will kind of pull in some jobs. But because the companies aren't always posting on LinkedIn, you want to go and cross-reference and then apply through the company page. Also with LinkedIn and some of the others, if you're just sending the same resume or profile through their site, you're not able to target your materials. So, I always recommend do your research before you apply, be thoughtful before you apply. Don't just click buttons and start sending your information. We just conducted a search in our office for a full-time position, and we saw a lot of applicants that we could tell that's what they did, and they weren't successful in their search, at least with us. So you want to have a very targeted, well thought out search. Here are just kind of a rundown of the services that we provide that are here to help support you during your internship search. All of our career advisors help you with resume writing, cover letters, interviewing skills, strategy sessions, making new connections. This is an important part of your internship search, and I'd really encourage you, if you haven't already, make an appointment with one of us to go over your resume, talk about how you're doing your search, do a mock interview, do all of those different steps so that when it does come down to applying and getting an interview, you're doing the right things. We also do the career fairs. And so right now, all the career fairs we have listed, those are all virtual. But then we're doing some things where we're calling them pop-ups. And so what that means right now is that's 6 or fewer employers. We've got everybody spaced out. It's not a big event in the banquet hall. You're able to socially distance and just get some information in a casual environment. We're doing those. When we're doing them in Macon, they're at the Student Life Center. In Eastman, we've done some in the flight lobby. In Cochran, we've had an employer set up in Georgia Hall in the front lobby. We're going to have another employer, Perry Ellis, come in March on the Cochran campus. So just some of those high traffic locations where we can just put a few employers where you do get a chance to talk with them in person. We'll also have some sessions later in March and April with Robins Air Force Base to talk with students with disabilities who want to know more about their Schedule A hiring process. And so there are a lot of people that may qualify for Schedule A who don't realize they qualify. That could be a physical disability, it could be a medical disability related to physical, it could be intellectual learning, or it could be psychiatric. So even someone who may suffer from depression could qualify or be eligible under Schedule A. So we have those sessions in the event section of Handshake that students can sign up for. They're going to be on all of our campuses with also a virtual option on each of those dates. Of course, we've talked a lot about Handshake and all of the regional, national, and local employers that use that website. If an employer calls us and they say, I have an internship, that's where we put it. And we send out weekly emails to the students who use Handshake, and we include a lot of those in there. So that's an important resource for sure to keep using. Our networking activities that we do different ones every semester. We sometimes have mock interview days with employers, but we always offer mock interviews with students that you can schedule with our staff. And then of course our info sessions like the one in the kind of private one-on-one sessions that we're doing like with Robbins later this semester. We have our professional closet, which we're reopening on March 1st. And that's by appointment only through Handshake in the appointment section. And then we also have our student leadership programs, which is a great way to start gaining experience. Sometimes people participate in those programs prior to doing an internship because they're trying to develop their soft skills and get more experience working with others in a group. So we have a variety of those available as well. So as you're getting through that search and we've helped you develop those materials that you're going to use, it's good to have an application checklist that you can go through and kind of keep yourself on track. So it's good right now to determine what your timeline is. So if it's summer, if it's fall, and then kind of go backwards from there and figure out when you need to be doing things. So developing and targeting your resume is a very important first step. If you started to look at positions, read job descriptions, then you can start to get an idea of maybe what you really want to apply to and how you need to focus your resume. A targeted resume is always going to be your best bet in these professional job searches. And so figuring out, okay, well, where do I have some experience in my campus organizations, or how has my part-time job given me a lot of transferable skills? Again, these are things we can help you one-on-one determine in a resume appointment. And then cover letter. So when you're applying, typically an employer is going to want a cover letter too. This is also another targeted document. Think about it as just a letter that goes with your resume that really provides more information and tells someone why you're the best candidate. We can't always say that in our resume. We often feel like we're not getting to completely express ourselves in the resume. So the cover letter lets us do that, which is the number one reason why it's not a generic form letter, that you want to send something different to every company and really speak to what they're looking for, the information you've seen in their job description. It's good too in your search process to obtain a few people who can be a good reference. So this doesn't mean a letter, unless that's what the company's asked for. Sometimes there's different internship programs that they may ask for a letter, but most of the time it's someone that they can call who can say, yes, this person was a great employee or a great student. I know their work ethic. I know that they can be dependable. So it's not necessarily a close friend or a family member. It should be somebody who has some knowledge of you on a professional level. It could be a coworker if you're unable to have a supervisor that you could list. Sometimes we lose track of them, or maybe we don't want them to know we're applying for something, and so we might use a coworker who can speak positively as well. It's always important to ask your references first before you list them, and then just to make sure that they do have really good things to say and that they feel comfortable being a reference. I also recommend too to have a weekly application goal. So if it's, even if it's just I'm going to apply once a week, that's great. That's a goal and it's easy to achieve. You may push yourself to 5. You know, sometimes I see people and they'll say, oh, I just still can't find anything. And then we dig a little deeper and we find out they haven't been looking and they haven't been applying. Well, that's what it's going to take. You got to apply. And, you know, and I would say apply to some things that you're not sure about, but it's helping you get that goal achieved and it's helping you put yourself out there. At the very least, it might lead to an interview and it gives you a chance to practice those interviewing skills. If we only apply to our dream internship, then it might turn out that we don't find an internship. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to test a lot of things out. And sometimes that company or internship that we apply to kind of on a whim could turn out to be our dream internship and we didn't even know it. So really take chances on things. Don't be afraid to randomly talk to an employer at a career fair, even if it's signing up to meet one-on-one with the virtual event. It is not a commitment. It's kind of like speed dating. You get to just, you know, talk to somebody, see if you like them, and then if you don't, you can move on. So you definitely take advantage of that opportunity to test a lot of things out. Also, if you have a friend that's going through the search as well, be an accountability partner. Check in with each other, find out what they're looking for, what they're applying to, set goals that, hey, we're both gonna apply for 5 things this week and we're gonna check back. Do mock interviews with each other. So it's good to have other people in your life with a similar goal so that you can be encouraging and push each other. And maybe it's a little bit of healthy competition. Keep good records too. And this kind of goes back to that. Don't don't click buttons and apply to things. Really think about it. I'd rather you apply to 5 internships that you researched and you feel like you could send a good application than sending 50 and you don't even know who you sent them to. So keep track of who you applied to, when, if there was a contact person, copy and paste that job description and save it somewhere. Sometimes the challenge now is that when it's online, it's set to go offline at a certain point and then that job description's gone. So if you get called for the interview, you're like, oh gosh, what did I even apply to? And sometimes you feel bad asking that. So if we keep good records, we're going to know where we applied and what we need to prepare for that interview. However, it's always okay when they call to schedule that interview to say, would you be willing, could you send me a copy of the job description? You know, because yeah, a lot of times it's going to go offline. Ask for that information so you can prepare. And then of course, practice your interviewing skills. I mentioned we offer mock interviews. We will ask you a series of questions and we will give you feedback. And this is an important process that we see a lot of people go, I can talk about interviewing. I can interview. I'm a good talker. And then they get in the interview and they realize they're not sure what the employer is wanting them to talk about. And so we can practice that with you and give you feedback. I mentioned those targeted resumes and cover letters. A few tips for getting started with that. Review that job description, really get to know it, match it up with what experiences you think you have. Look at those qualifications, the requirements, the skills needed, and make sure that the action phrases in your resume and in your cover letter speak to those things that they're looking for. Maybe you can't address all of it, but try to address as much of it as you can. Sometimes in those requirements, it's asking for basic things like written communication, verbal communication, problem solving. These are things you're getting in your classes, in your part-time jobs, in your campus organizations. It's not just technical skills that they're asking for. But of course, if it is technical skills, some of those things are things that you might be getting in your classes, or maybe you're learning those things on the side. So look at those descriptions and see how much of it you can actually include in your resume so that there are keywords there. And then in your cover letter, you know, as I said before, it's not generic. It should be very specific. It's your opportunity to communicate your why, letting them know, why are you interested? Why do you want to be in this field? Why do you want this internship? That is going to stand out because most people mess up the cover letter. So if you'll just talk about why you want to do that internship and why you're interested and why you think you're the best candidate, and you're very specific and it's not generic, and it looks like you actually read the job description, it's very likely you're going to get an interview. So that's a really, really good habit to get into. And then you get that internship, it's time to be intern ready. So there's a few professionalism tips we want to offer today too during this workshop. Always ask for the offer in writing. This is a good habit to get into as well. Sometimes we're so excited that someone's offered us a position, we just take it over the phone and we don't ask any questions. Well, even with an internship, it's important to ask questions, even if they offer it to you right there at the interview. And especially for unpaid internships, I'll see that happen. It's okay to say, oh, wow, thank you. I've got some other interviews or I'm considering other options. Could I ask some questions, get information from you, and get back to you with my answer by, such and such date? Asking for a couple of days is standard because you need time to make sure this is the right decision for you. When you're interviewing, when you're looking at positions, that interview goes two ways. You get to make a decision as well. So get the offer in writing. Ask some questions about the dress code, the start date, the hours per week. You need to know all that before you accept a position. And then before you start, if there's time off that you need to take, go ahead and let your supervisor know that early. Don't wait until the day before your cousin's wedding to say, hey, I'm not going to be here. You've got to ask for that time off early so that they can plan around you. And then make sure you're planning your schedule, balancing things, because sometimes when we add on that internship, that's a lot when we've got our classes, studying, our campus involvement, and you want to be able to still commit to all of those things fully. So really exercise good time management, keep a calendar, prioritize your time, even schedule time to study, and that's going to help you be able to get more things done. Update your workplace wardrobe. That's a really important thing to do before becoming an intern, that you're going to have to dress a little differently than you may dress for classes, because you do want to start presenting yourself as a professional and not as a student, particularly in that environment. And anticipate that new set of workplace expectations, and they can be different from where you may work as a part-time employee. Sometimes it's a shock to people when they go into a professional setting, the expectations that may be connected to that job. Sometimes it's even as simple as, oh, wow, they expect me to be here on time, or, oh, I get 30 minutes for lunch and not an hour. Oh, casual Friday really isn't a thing. I still have to dress nicely on Friday. Or casual Friday means I still have to look presentable for work. It doesn't really mean casual. So observing what your supervisor does, asking questions, reading handbooks, those types of things can help you start to meet those expectations. And then with academic credit, we mentioned this earlier, just make sure you talk with your academic department just so that you are handling that appropriately. There is some information on the experiential learning website for Middle Georgia that will have some specific contacts for each department in terms of who works with experiential learning. So those might be people to reach out to, but your academic advisor can help, and your department chair is always a good place to start as well. Let's see, let me go back. Oh, sorry. We jumped ahead a little bit. Another thing I'll mention is that we are implementing a program called Internship Kickstarter. Our internship search workshop is one aspect of that program. All of the steps that we consider vital to a great and successful internship search is also part of that program. So students who go through those steps would be part of that Kickstarter program. So if that's something you're interested in, you can reach out to us and we can get you signed up for that. We run several modules for that program through D2L that you can also do on your own. And this is our contact information, so you guys can follow up with us, send us questions. Our general email address is careerservices@mga.edu. My email, I'm going to type it in the chat so you guys have it. But since we've got about 15 minutes, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. You guys can either raise your hand, or if you have a question you want to put in the chat, we can cover those right now. Is anybody planning on looking for internships for the summer? Abigail is. Great. Well, this is a perfect time to be starting that process, getting that resume together, starting to look at what opportunities are out there. What types of internships are you both looking for right now? Do you have specific types that you are hoping to find and achieve? Let's see, Abigail had a question. Are there any engineering internships in the area that you know of? We do get some of those posted on Handshake. Since we're not an engineering school, we don't always have a ton of those listed. But what we often do when you are interested in that, come and meet with me, and we can meet virtually too. There are some organizations here in the local area that we could, sometimes if we've got your resume, and that's a first step, like you've got to have that resume, and then we can reach out to them and see if they have any opportunities. Engineering sometimes is a little bit easier to navigate because they have to have interns. Like they're pretty used to that as part of their business structure. And so reaching out to some different places to see if they would take kind of that pre-engineering student is usually what we've done when somebody's looking, because it is a little harder when you're a freshman or sophomore looking for those opportunities, and they might be going more to those juniors and seniors at an engineering school, but we can help you with that. So reach out to me and we can set up a time to talk. Giselle, what kind of internship are you looking for? I saw you type in something. Center around business. Okay, and there's tons of things in business that you can do. So sometimes with that is trying to focus more on what it is you'd like to do. But at the same time, being open to different opportunities is a great thing when you are looking for that first internship. So a lot of different opportunities might be available. What other questions do you guys have that maybe I didn't cover, or is there something I could clear up for you? Oh, the Career Kickstarter program. Yeah. So, and we actually have two tracks that we do. We have job search, and then we have internship search. If you would like to sign up for the internship search one, send me an email or let me know now, and I'll sign you up Great. So Abigail's going to email me about engineering. Giselle, if you want to email me about Internship Kickstarter, I can sign you up in the D2L platform, and you can start playing around in there. There's a lot of things we created that are self-guided. We've got some different videos we've created that you can go back and watch. And then there are the things that you can do with us in person or virtually that we also include in that program, that it's almost like these are things you need to check off and do that's going to help you have a more successful search. So that's the mock interview, networking at any of the career fairs or any other sessions that we're setting up, doing that resume appointment, doing your LinkedIn profile and really building that up and starting to build connections. We have some activities in the program, like we say, make this many contacts in LinkedIn a week. Again, going back to that, hey, if you set goals for yourself, then you're going to be that much closer to getting that internship. Because sometimes, you don't even see things posted that you're interested in. But if you can say, I'm going to reach out to 20 people a week in LinkedIn that are in my field and try to set up informational interviews, those might lead to an internship interview. And so there's a lot of things in Kickstarter that build off of what we went over in the workshop, but kind of helps you put it into action so that you have a really good game plan in place. And we implemented that this fall, especially as things were more virtual, and we wanted to give everybody an option to be able to access some resources when they may not be able to get to campus or don't feel comfortable coming to campus. But a lot of the things that we're providing as part of that Kickstarter. Does that make sense? And if you want me to sign you up, I can, and then you'll be able to go into D2L and kind of look around and see some of those extra things that you could do. Oh, no, it's free. Everything we do in our office, the only thing that we charge for is the professional closet. We sell those items, but they are super cheap. But, your tuition pays for our the services that we provide. Any other questions that I can answer for y'all? Well, if there aren't any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. But y'all have my email address, so please send me an email if any specific questions come up, or if you would like to set up an appointment to go over your resume, you can send me an email. I can even get that scheduled for you in Handshake, but you're welcome to go into Handshake and schedule that as well. We meet with students virtually, but we'll also meet with you in person. There is a way with any of the appointments in Handshake, you can choose in person if you would like. And then we have some different days that each of us sets up where we're available in person. So we're willing to do that, but we can also continue to meet with students virtually, especially if, if you're not able to make it to the Macon or Cochran campus. In a quick amount of time, or just aren't able to come to campus. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining the workshop today. Good luck with your search. Please let us know. Oh, it looks like Giselle has a question. Sorry. Okay, good. It's been helpful. Great. I know we throw a lot of information at you, so and I can email you both the presentation as well. That way you have all of the slides, and I can send you the recording if you'd like to go back and listen to anything. All right, well, good luck everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you for attending.